How's everybody doing today? Hopefully we got the setup right today. Struggle streaming a little bit yesterday. See who rolls in so we can get it right. Happy Friday. I think I got the setup right a little better. Trying to make it work. Let's see. Get my chat rolling. Yep. I can tell my setup's a little better already. So we will see. We will see. Give me a 1 in the chat if you can hear me. Oh, good evening, Blackjack Yak 54. Glad you can join me. Okay, won't let me post to YouTube, but we'll figure that out later. I'm sorry to good evening. Appreciate the one. Let me go check on my LinkedIn. I need to read up on my LinkedIn setup. I'm always struggle streaming on LinkedIn, but it's all good. You know how we do it. If you got any cybersecurity questions or tech questions or questions in general, just put them in the chat. Winding my Friday off. Let's see. Let me peek on my LinkedIn real quick. Hopefully everybody had a productive week. Let's see. My event there. Yeah, I am tired though. It's been a long week for me. Ooh, that's cool. I'm over there. Put a little something in there. You see it, Ticketmaster's all over the net. Ticketmaster getting hacked. Snowflake, their database is denying it, so we're gonna dig a little bit into that. Let's see. I think it's just us two. Yeah, facts. So that's something I watch it. Yeah, it's not. I don't feel bad because even the big YouTubers be having problems over there. Like, yeah, so you would think I'm done with a massive study. Yeah, the funny thing is I was studying the CISSP before I got out here, taking practice tests. It wasn't going well. Like Jack, so I feel you on there. Sometimes I'm thinking I've got hired without ever having a CISP. I got a security plus, but I think some of the higher level senior positions they put required on it Indeed and LinkedIn when I see it. So I don't know, Blackjack Jack. This market's so funny. I need to make sure I got everything in line. So if I need to find some, because tech's been laying off big time. So it is what it is. Let's see it though. Up, salute to Before the Billions. Glad he could join us. I was just looking at your mock interview with the Meta guy. I'm thinking about doing a mock interview with somebody before the billions. That was an excellent video, the mock interview. So I need to get into my mock interview game. So let's get it going. Once again, if you got any questions, cybersecurity tech, just drop them in there. Because there's other people in here. Because Before the Billions, a data engineer. I ain't data engineered in about a decade. So let's see. I got CompTIA Security January. They got a bunch of Udemy certs until I get paid for the exams. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I did a whole bunch of AWS certs, so I got a few of those. So I need to start doing more videos on AWS. I kind of pivoted from that. I need to get back on there. But let's hit this Ticketmaster. Look at a few things. Then I'm gonna do another video where we're actually gonna talk about ways to block it. I think I'm gonna do a collab with the Study GRC. I'm usually hanging out with those guys, so I'll probably do a collab with them on kind of the next step. Talk about the breach, talking about some other stuff, then talking about how do you go through and do a post-mortem of a breach and kind of make sure that wouldn't happen to your company. So that's probably what we're going to do, I think Wednesday. So we're probably going to make that happen. So let's get going. So we're gonna read a quick article. This was from Variety.com. You see it right there. Ticketmaster's hack customer data security breach, which is part of Live Nation, which is shoes. You see Ticketmaster data stolen and shopped on the dark web by criminal threat actors. And we're gonna look in at. I think they were asking for 500,000, which I thought was too cheap, but shout out to them. But of course, they declined them like you should. And we'll talk about that. Should you pay the ransomware? Should you not pay the ransomware? Right? There's always a big discussion on that. So once again, let's drill down into that real quick. Just gonna read a couple segments of this. Company said it does not expect security breach to have a material impact on operation or finances. My next slide is going to dive into that a little bit. 3 days after initial report, the notorious hacking group has stolen info on more than 500 million Ticketmaster customers. I forget how big Ticketmaster is. That's a crazy amount of customers. It was attempting to sell the data online. Parent company Live Nation confirmed the breach in a regulatory filing late Friday. Live Nation identified unauthorized activity with third-party cloud environment containing the company data. And we're going to talk about that. I believe they were using Snowflake as their NoSQL cloud, and they were just calling an API on it. We always talk about supply chain and third-party risk. So obviously, if you're doing a third-party cloud database environment and you don't control that whole infrastructure, that's a risk, right? And launched an investigation with industry-leading forensic investigation to understand what happened. The company said in the filing on May 31st, SEC file. We're going to take a quick look at that because my thing is, if it's not a material breach, I don't think you should be putting it in your SEC filing, right? Because SEC filing is talking about money, what happened, what makes, and what's going to have a big loss. If it wasn't a material breach, I don't know why you would put it in your SEC file. A couple more paragraphs, and we're going to keep it moving. May 27, 2024, the criminal threat actor offered what it alleged to be Ticketmaster user data for sale via the dark web. Currently, the Live Nation said it does not believe the incident had a material impact on overall business operation or our financial condition or results of operation, nor does it think the hack is reasonably likely to have a material impact going forward. To continue to evaluate the risk of remediation going forward, the hacking group known as Shining Hunters has claimed responsibility for 560 million customers, 1.3 terabyte trove of allegedly including personal information on Ticketmasters, such as name, credit card number, emails, home address, and phone numbers. The hacker offered to sell it for 500,000. So let's keep that moving. Let's see. Let's go back to the slides real quick. So that's my calculation. Now, I'm not a great mathematician, but you got 500 million customers and you got to pay $100 for credit monitoring, which is normal going forward. That's $50 billion. You haven't fixed anything. You ain't hired no consultants. So I'm trying to figure out how $50 billion is not a material impact on your financials. Now, somebody back my math up. PBO tired. Maybe my math ain't mathing. But 500 million times 100 is $50 billion. So I'm trying to figure out what of that is not material. So somebody help me out with that math right there. So I'm trying. They said $50 billion ain't no money. I think that's what they just said, right? It's no material impact. So I'm trying to figure out. I need to go work for the Live Nation because if 50 billion ain't no money, I need to get a little of that though. So, but that's one thing when you talk about tech, cybersecurity, why people in the industry gets paid, right? Because if you lose 500 million customers and you got to pay them $100 for credit monitoring, you might have to pay that over. You might have to pay $100 for 2 or 3 years straight. So just 1 year of that is $50 billion. Now, maybe they got cyber insurance. I would think a company that big with that outside presence would have to have cyber insurance. If I'm on that board of directors and we're talking IT and cybersecurity, just for this reason, right? Because if you got 500 million, once again, times $100, that's a crazy amount of money. So I'm assuming they got cyber insurance for that. That's the only reason that wouldn't make sense. But I'm still trying to wrap my head around it because they said it was no material impact. So I'm once again I'm a little confused with that. So that's one thing we're going to do. Once again, me and the GRC study hall probably going to collab next week, and we're going to dig a little more into cyber insurance. What does that calculation looks like? You as an executive, what's your mitigation for that? Right. Most of the time, that is cyber insurance because that number is just so big. It's like your house. If your house caught on fire, such a big number, you're gonna have what insurance on it. So that's not uncommon. So let's keep it pushing. I'm gonna come back to that slide. I don't know why that slide just. I'm enamored by that $50 billion because once again they said it was no material impact. So obviously 50 billion is not a lot of money to them. Right, this was their SEC filing. I got the link up there. Here you see May 2020, Live Nation launched an investigation using the industry-leading forensic to understand what happened on May 27th. Criminal threat actors offered to sell their data on the dark web. We are working to mitigate risk to users and companies and have notified, cooperate with law enforcement. As of data find the incident has not had, or we do not believe is reasonably likely to have a material impact on our overall business operations or on our financial condition or results of the operation. We continue to evaluate the risk and our remediation efforts of ongoing. Right, that last paragraph right there. But when I go back to the upper slide, so you tell me $50 billion and you tell me that in the last statement. So as the kids say, the math ain't math, and I'm a little confused on that, right? So what does that mean, right? So I guess it means they make real money and they about that life, right? But right, it said no material impact on business operations. Let me move my head out the way. Let's see. We'll move it at the bottom, right? So you can see it right there. We continue to evaluate the risk in our remediation and our ongoing efforts because $50 billion is not going to hurt our pockets, right? So let's keep that moving. Like I said, we're coming back to that. So let's look at this quick. Let me look at this short video on it. Share it. Make sure I can see it. Go back to my original setting in the corner.
On that massive data breach impacting loads of Ticketmaster customers, a hacking group now claiming responsibility. ABC's Alexis Christoforous is here with more on what you need to know. Alexis, good morning.
Good morning, Whit. This is a massive data breach affecting more than 500 million Ticketmaster customers.
You see that? 500 million, like she said, it's a massive data breach. But Ticketmaster said it's going to be immaterial, which once again, that's crazy. But that lets you know why cyber guys and technology is so important. It's easy to buy tickets, but once again, if you get hacked, that's just a lot of people data you just lost.
Parent company Live Nation confirms it found unauthorized activity on its database May 20th. 1 week later, on May 27th, the company says a group of hackers tried to sell the stolen personal details of 560 million Ticketmaster customers on the dark web. Now, the stolen information includes names, addresses, phone numbers, and some credit card details of millions of Ticketmaster customers. The hacking group was reportedly trying to sell that data for $500,000. News of the massive data breach comes as the Justice Department filed.
Now, a quick thing, I know I keep stopping and jumping in and out. That's how YouTube leaves me alone. But the other part of that is the government says you should not pay ransomware. 50 billion on 500,000. I'd have paid that 500,000 and just seen what would have happened. I would have just paid that 500,000. Like I said, compared to 50 billion, I'd have took that chance just to see what would have happened. and I'd reported myself to the government saying my fiduciary responsibilities on 50 billion. I got to scratch this $500,000 check to see if that is going to help us get that data back on 50 billion. That ain't math, and I'd have paid that.
A lawsuit just a week ago against Live Nation, calling on a federal court to disband the company. The government accuses Live Nation of running an illegal monopoly that it says limits competition and drives up ticket prices for fans. Live Nation calls the government's accusations baseless. Now, as for that data breach, it doesn't appear that passwords were compromised, but if you have a Ticketmaster account, experts recommend changing your password as a precaution, using two-factor authentication, and never share your personal or financial information with online solicitors.
The cool thing, not the cool thing, is, but I just assumed two-factor authentication was just mandatory now. So that if you don't have that set up, get that set up. And that's one thing we're going to talk about the end. But once again, we're going to take this to the next level next week. Like I said, I think me and the GRC study hall is going to do some stuff, and we're going to talk about ways to protect yourself as a consumer, ways to protect yourself as a business. Then I got to write that in my notes because I don't think I'm going to touch on that is what's the cost of cyber insurance compared to the cost of you getting hacked like we just seen. And so because those premiums I heard could be outrageous, but 50 billion is outrageous, right? So you have to run those numbers to see if those make sense.
Gio?
It is so important to turn on that two-factor authentication. Thank you, Alexis.
Yeah, thank you, Alexis. We appreciate you now. So let's move back over to, like I said, if you got any questions, just throw them in the box. We're just going through. Let's see. Boom, boom. So here's what some of the stuff that came out. The third-party cloud database security was lacking. As part of the third-party database involved, members of the threat intelligence communities came from dark reading have identified it to be the database Snowflake. We got a few slides on Snowflake, but once again, we're going to dig much deeper into that next week, which issued its own statement acknowledging there has been cybersecurity directives to some of its customers, which include Ticketmaster, but the posting on its community forum did not name names to which customer are affected. The company did not immediately respond for requests. Snowflake did note that the attack succeeded due to poor customers' configuration. I got that in the slide. OWASP top 10 misconfiguration has been on that thing for a decade. This appeared to be a targeted campaign directed at users with single-factor authentication that was on the email. So we got to make sure we get our two-factor turned on. As part of the campaign, the threat actors have leveraged credentials previously purchased or obtained through info stealing malware. So a lot of times people don't realize people got software that's key login, info, password stuffing, different things. And once again, we're going to dig a little more in there to get passwords. And they just save them to try on other things that match the same username. So what Snowflake said is they got your credentials from somewhere else and they brought them over to us. A lot of times they didn't hack us, right? And because you had single factor authentication, if they got your credentials from somewhere else because you're using the same password, if you had two-factor authentication, even if they had it, right, you put it in, it's going to call your phone for you to do the other part of that factor. So Snowflake said, that ain't our fault, right? So here's Snowflake, CrowdStrike, and Mandiant. I would say Mandiant's probably the number one forensic guys when big companies call or get in trouble, get hacked. Mandiant is number one on the call sheet, especially in government work. We have not identified evidence suggesting that this activity was caused by a vulnerability, misconfiguration, or breach of Snowflake platform. We have not identified evidence suggesting this activity was compromised by credentials of current or former Snowflake personnel. They just like we talked about, those were your credentials they took and brought. It wasn't our guys. This appeared to be a targeted campaign directed at users with single-factor authentication. As part of this campaign, threat actors had leveraged credentials previously purchased or obtained for info stealing. We did find evidence that threat actors obtained personal credentials to and accessed demo accounts belonging to former Snowflake employees. It did not contain sensitive data. The demo accounts are not connected to Snowflake's production or corporate systems. The access was possible because the demo accounts are not behind Okta or multi-factor authentication, MFA, unlike Snowflake corporate and production systems. So they saying, which should be true because they're a production company. Their admins, their help desk people, their production people are using two-factor Okta, which Okta got hacked a minute ago, but still they're using MFA. So they're telling you it's not us and we're not responsible for those type of attacks, right? Shout out to my man Jim R for showing up. What's up, PBO? Been busy work. Me too. Finally, I appreciate you. Yeah, I've been lacking on the live streams myself. What's up? Come say, I love that song. But let's keep going. What Snowflake said is we as a production company with a production database is doing the right thing. Man. You got your own stuff hacked. That's what Snowflake is saying. Right. So let's keep it pushing. The cool thing I found, and we're gonna look at a short clip of this, is Ticketmaster is an AWS client, and they were doing joint ventures with AWS talking about some of their architecture. One of the databases they were leveraging was Amazon DynamoDB, right? Which is global table. It's a global database. They running it around the world. So whatever region you're closest to will grab your data and you can get it back in milliseconds, right? So that's why there's very few downtimes or issues with it. So let's look at a quick video with them talking with Ticketmasters. And I look at a lot of these videos. For me, as a GRC guy, security guys, architecture, you need to be able to look at certain architectures, Amazon, Azure, on-prem, and say if that's good architecture, if it's secure. So one ways of doing that is looking at AWS and Azure. They do a wonderful job because they always having events. Now they put those events online. In the old days, you had to go to it to see it and pay all this money. Now, a lot of times they put those events and slice them up and dice them up so you can figure out what track you want to take. They got data warehouse, security, SOC. There's so many architecture, so many different things to follow up on there with that. Oh, facts, no fuck. Yeah, because you're right. I would say because database is really where all the good data is. If you're secure, I don't have my data on flat files. Even if I got PDFs or flat files, I'm gonna put them inside a database because I think databases, you can put your ACLs, you can put your access privs, you can lock down tables and columns. But no, you're right. All the good stuff's in the database. So that's the number one attack vector because you go through all those layers to get to the database. All right, now, so you're 100% correct on that. So once again, let's look at this. Them talking about a little bit about their architecture. We'll look at a couple minutes of it. Like I said, I really enjoy looking at those videos. Let me see. Camera, Ticketmaster, there. Share. Let's see. Make sure that's on. So let's look at a couple minutes of it.
Welcome to This Is My Architecture. I am Gerardo, and I'm joined today by Shane from Ticketmaster. Welcome, Shane.
Thank you for having me.
So, Shane, what does Ticketmaster do?
Ticketmaster is a ticketing services company that provides an online marketplace where fans can purchase tickets to live events.
Awesome. So what architecture from Ticketmaster are you telling us about?
So my team is the checkout team. So we manage the page where folks actually purchase the tickets, put in their payment information, choose their options, and get their order and their tickets.
So every time tickets go on sale, I'm guessing the system is put under a lot of stress.
Yeah.
So can you walk me through what are the...
Real quick, we're going to look at a little more, but the weird thing about that is, I have to check it out, fact check. The weird thing is good and bad is, because I'm old, I'm not putting my architecture on there for everybody to know what my setup is. I don't know if they thought they were secure. I don't know if they thought they were hacked. the more people know about your architecture, it's easier for people to hack. Right. So I don't, so I enjoy them and I look at a ton of these, especially on the weekend. Once again, security, talking about architecture. And we know Ticketmaster is a big system, so it's got a scale. It's running regions around the world. They got failover. They run in multi-distributed database, once again, across the planet. So wherever you at, it's going to go to the region or data center close to you. That is magnificent, but I'm not putting that on the web for people to see, but maybe because I'm old. But once again, the more people know about your architecture, right, it's easier to attack you. So I'm always surprised that they did it. But once again, I enjoy watching these.
Components of the architecture.
Yeah, so when a request comes in to render a web page, that goes to a web app that we have built in Next.js that's running on EKS. That's what does all the page rendering. When any API endpoint happens, that goes to our AppSync layer.
Okay, so your API is centralized on AppSync.
Yep.
Are you using the GraphQL component of it?
Yeah. So we use GraphQL and AppSync to basically expose those queries and mutations. And those queries and mutations then hit the other layers. For stuff that maybe is a quick load, query retrieve data, it might hit an AppSync, and then that might go down to DynamoDB to load the data and retrieve it, return it back. For something that takes longer, like the purchase mutation, that might go down to hit the step function, execute that purchase, and then return the result.
Okay, so can you give us a couple of examples of the type of information that's moving around here? So is this event information maybe? Of the
Yeah, there's a lot of different types of information, but yeah, event information as well as information about the session.
Okay, so and what sort of, how do you make the differentiation between what goes?
I think Jim Moore had an excellent point. I see this a lot. Our clouds were so misconfigured prior to me onboarding because IT had contractors administering. Security was tiny, nobody monitored them. The crazy part about it is, I thought that's why you brought contractors on, because they're supposed to bring you a level of maturity and complexity to help you get those configurations correct. But I've seen that a lot too, Jim. Or that's kind of amazing. Even now, I mean, the clouds are 15, 20 years old almost, and we're still struggling with misconfigurations. It's taken 1 to 2 years to public standards and get configs rolled out. Lots of I'll facts on that. The crazy thing is the AWS has a lot of things to check those. AWS config check those configurations for you to make the least make sure they're best of breed. But now, right, you correct, Jim R. And I'm, like I said, I'm really getting into it from like I said, architecture compliance standpoint. And that's one of the things I look for is misconfigurations. You're right, Jim. I see that a ton. Which once you said, I don't know if we get any better, Jim.
To a single Lambda being executed, or when do you need it to be processed by step functions?
Yeah, so step functions are better for larger, more complex operations, things that require a lot of steps. Lambdas are better for single step operations, things that might retrieve data and transform or call an external service. So those things go through our Lambdas. Multiple step processes go through the step function. In the case of the purchase, it might be something like, for example, collecting the payment, processing the order, all of those things would go through the step function.
That makes sense. Now, how do you handle waiting at the API level? Because supposedly this could take a second or two.
Yeah, so we use the WebSockets within AppSync. So the WebSockets basically allow the client.
So once again, that's just the next level. And I hope to talk a little more about architecture too, as in certain things, because once again, as a compliance guy, my job is to look at architecture for security. So if you don't understand the basic of these types of architecture and these type of services, you go back a year ago, I think I touched on a lot of those services, because you at least got to understand the service at a high level so you can do a security review, at least check. And then like the next level is like Jim said, what is the best configuration for this for a certain architecture? Do you know what those are? Do you know where to look those up? So that's always, and once again, OWASP top 10, that's been in that top 10 for the last 15 years. It's hit or miss with contractors. Some are great, many sucks. But if you don't write good contracts, you screw. No, facts on that. Facts on that. Like you said, contractors, like anything, there's some are good or suck. You would think though that there would be a little more vetting for contractors, right? A lot of times your FTEs, you expect them to grow and learn. Contractors usually find hopefully a guy at a certain experience level, but like Jim said, those are hit or miss. So let's get back. And once again, we're going to dig more on that next week. I'm going to work out with the GRC study hall. We're going to dig a little more deeper into those configurations. And this is one of them he was talking about. Multiple regions. This could be East Coast and West Coast. DynamoDB means underneath the hood of AWS. When you put a transaction in A, it replicates to the B. And when you put one in B, it replicates to the A. So if region A goes down, B will be up at B. But the other part of that is if you're close to the region B, because you're a Ticketmaster, you're trying to hurry up and get your ticket, which whenever region you're closer to, you're going to get routed at the bottom. Route 53 or global accelerators can automatically route to the nearest replica. Right. That's why you get instant response time around the world with Ticketmasters or some of those type of things. That's why you get an AWS, right, to get that level of technology, right? Then once again, from a GRC and security, sometimes I have a security architect in my title. So part of that is reviewing this setup. Then from a security, is that replication encrypted? Is the application rewrite? Is that encrypted? Is DynamoDB encrypted, right? So if you're like Ticketmaster and somebody steal your DynamoDB, if it's encrypted, can they read it? Where the keys at, right? And once again, we're going to get a little deeper into that next week. And once again, Snowflake, that's up there. That's their AWS. This is some connections of how you would run an API through Snowflake. So once again, it's H and C. Is that encrypted? Is the database files encrypted? So if somebody steals your database, right, is certain username and passwords, can they read the data? Because some of our database, even if you're an admin, you can work on the database, but if you go to a data column, you don't have permission to read the data column. So even as a DBA or a high-level admin on that, you can't read the data. Right now, if you're a data engineer like my man B2B, of course, he can read the data, right? Because he's moving it and transforming it. But if you're just a regular DBA, somebody that works on the file system, you won't be able to read the data. So that's one thing we're going to dig in, try to find a little deeper to figure out what that breakdown was for Ticketmaster and their Snowflake and their Snow pipeline, right? What did that look like on their back end? What can we figure out how they had to configure? Then the next step too is, and we're going to talk about that, is what do you need to configure so that won't happen to you? You as a GRC person and admin, what do you need to look at to make sure your organization, or AKA Jim, you're a good consultant and you have some understanding of the architecture you're in charge of, right? So what should that look like? This is one of the Ticketmaster I pulled on one of the sites. They're running Kubernetes pods, worker nodes. So one of their sites, kind of what we were seeing, they're running Kubernetes. And that's one thing I don't really like about that. Once again, me as an organization, I don't want you to know anything about my setup, because now I know you run the Kubernetes. What are some of the Kubernetes weak spots? How is Kubernetes connecting to Snowflake, right? You just Google out there, go Ticketmaster. So I think they were one of the references, architectures for AWS. So they let them speak. It sounds cool. You're in front of everybody like your organization, to now you're on the front news of everybody's paper for something wrong. So once again, that's a catch-22. I'm the incognito guy. This is another one of those AWS S3 buckets connecting to a Snowflake architecture. They got external tables, clean tables, which means you put your data, make sure it's right. Then you put it in your business level goal, so your executives can look at reporting, analytics. Right, the goal data means it's all cleaned up and it's ready to go for the executives to get their dashboards. But what's the connection from AWS to Snowflake? Are these external tables and clean tables encrypted at rest? So if somebody steals the data without the passwords, they couldn't read it. Who has permission to read these tables? A lot of times you could just have pipelines doing this work and nobody reads them really till the till the business executives get the dashboard. So, right. So you just really working on the pipeline, and the pipeline does all that work. Right. You just put the data in the raw S3, then it goes over there and it just does all the manipulation, rolls up, rolls down, operational data store, data lakes, all that stuff can be automatic to you. You won't need to read it till the business level, aka the managers and the CEOs with their dashboards. But we're going to talk a little bit about that, dig into some of those technologies to be able to see what that should look like and what is some of the best technologies you need to do so you won't end up on the news, right? So I'll definitely dig into that. Once again, if you got any questions or statements, drop them in the box. It's kind of rolling through on a Friday. I had a long week, boy. I'm dragging. Let's keep going. And we're going to take a look at this. Everybody know I'm a NIST guy, so we're doing a little bit of 861, which is what? Computer security incident handling. So once again, we're going to dig a little more on that. This is the incident response lifecycle. We're right here. We're going to talk about post-incident activities. So you got hacked, you didn't pay the money, you're on the news. What should you do after that? And what do you need to document it to make sure you're NIST, FedRAMP, or CMC compliant? All right, so we're going to dig a little bit into that. A couple things from that is create a follow-up report. Everybody got to see the report, and when the auditors, they want to come in. This is what we're going to do next week. Hold a lessons learned meeting, mandatory for a major incident. When you lose 500 million customers, that's a major incident. Who should attend the meeting? And these are the next two is really what we're going to dig into. What could have been done to prevent a similar incident from occurring in the future? So that's what you do when you grab these incidents internally. You walk through as a team. You figured out, okay, are we running Snowflake or are we running something similar to Snowflake? Right. And the other thing is what could be done to improve your detection incidents. Are you running Splunk? Are you running CloudWatch? Are you running L.Cache? What is your SIM and how are you tracking TTPs to figure out when somebody's accessing your data that you don't know about, right? Certain people, I guess I need to look that up. I need to be writing all these things down. What is Shiny? I think it was Shiny was the group that hacked them. What is Shiny Group's TTP? What is their techniques using when they steal data? If you go to MITRE, and we'll go there next week, what does MITRE say is their techniques for getting data, right? Most of these groups has certain, I'm going to do Active Directory. I'm going to do stuffing. I got some SQL injection I usually do. So what is that for this organization? Right. MFA. Are they known usually to get around MFA, and what is their normal techniques or attacks to do that? Right. So that's something we're going to dig in. Two, these are the main things we talked about. Misconfiguration. That's what the database company said. That's why Ticketmaster got hacked. And that's what my man Ryan was just saying, Jim was just saying is misconfiguration. Right. Private traffic. A lot of times when you have a SaaS platform, AWS, if it's in AWS 2, just in a different tenant, you can say, going to this tenant, to my source of data, you got to go through my VPC. You got to go to my network on AWS to get to my data. So if somebody's trying to go directly to that tenant, to your data, it will say invalid network because you got to go through my VPC, my network traffic to get to my data. So we got to check to see if you can set something like that up. Was the data encrypted at rest? So did the Shinies text the data blocks, then read them? Or did they do some kind of SQL injection where they could read the encryption because that sec said, oh, which they kind of said, right? They were using stolen credentials. So those stolen credentials gave them the ability to select or select to pull that data out. And when they pull it out, the database unencrypted it, right? Because that user had that privilege to run that select or query that data to pull it out. But the other question for is, if you did it and you had MFA, if you didn't have the phone or whatever that third party is, you wouldn't be able to run that query. right? Ingress traffic. When you query data, if it's not coming from the right port or the right user or the right network, the ingress traffic would have got blocked because it wasn't coming from the right port. What does that mean? Only the app server can pull data from this database. So it wasn't coming from an app server IP. That ingress traffic would have been blocked because it didn't get pulled from the right IP or port for it to get pulled. Like we said, MITRE attack. What are the techniques for that particular group? Once again, we're going to dig down a little bit more in that next week. Once again, I'm doing a collab with GRC study group. So that's the part we're going to dig in, which is the postmortem. My boss, he worked for the NSA. I'm going to interview him. He called it the hot wash. I don't like the name of the hot wash, but let's keep going. But those are the things we're going to dig down and get a little more technical next week, right? We're going to roll our sleeves up and kind of walk through from a postmortem. We got hacked and we were running that database. Was it misconfigured? Did we have private traffic? Did we have encryption on the database? How was it encrypted? Right, ingress traffic. Can we block traffic from getting queried if it's not coming from the right place? The MITRE attack. Can we figure out when somebody's inside our network, certain techniques and tactics and procedures? Can we figure that out in the SIM and block it before they can actually steal 500 million rows of data? And we got to pay 50 billion for it, right? 50 billion for it, right? So that's all I had. Let's view a couple more things. My slide is right here. I'm still enamored by this slide. Let's see if you can see it. 500 million customers times $100 is $50 billion. So that's why we got to do what we got to do. Hopefully we don't end up on the news, because I think, and we got to remember, is nothing's been fixed. No consultant. That's just to give everybody credit monitoring. We ain't paid Mandiant. We ain't paid PricewaterhouseCoopers. We ain't paid GMR to come in with his special configurations to block it. We ain't done none of that. So somebody check my math on that, man. I'm still confused if that's 50 billion, man. 500 million times $100 of credit monitoring. I need somebody to verify my number, man. I keep running in the calculator. There's a lot of zeros. I need somebody to validate that number before we end the night. I need that number validated, people. Anyone with an AWS certified solutions architect? I'm thinking I got one. What's up, Dr. Finesse? I got one. It wasn't bad, Jim. Anyone with AWS certified? I'm thinking of taking a. So I got the associate. It wasn't bad, Jim. Like I said, I took it. I got a lot of background, but I didn't think it was. I got the AWS practitioner. I got the AWS associate architect. I got the AWS developer, and I got the AWS security specialty. I took the DevOps and missed it. You need 720. I think I got 17. One of those, that one you actually have to do a live setting up architecture. It was 3 of them. I could not get the third one. I was close. I tried it. I thought I couldn't get the privilege set up right. So what I was going to do is I was going to make all my privileges admin, and I thought I was solving. I would just get points for trying to make it admin, but it wouldn't let me do it. So I'm gonna try to go back and get one. I need to check my data. I think I had them for about 2 years. The crazy thing is that I went work for another company. They use Azure. So, but I'm definitely gonna start doing more. All good. So as you see, Dr. Finesse down there, he's part of GRC study group, and let's get to that part. I guess he needs to see it because this is what we're going to talk about next week. So this is what we're going to dig in next week with the combo with GRC study group. We're going to dig in technically, and these are kind of things we're going to hit on from cybersecurity breach response. We're going to talk about, and they talked about in an article, the misconfiguration of that, and hopefully figure out what that should have been from Snowflake. Come from AWS and Snowflake. Could we make the traffic going into AWS SAAS private? Was the database traffic in Snowflake encrypted. All right, it sounds like the bad guy actually stole the credentials. So I need to put MFA, make sure we are in ingress traffic. If they were querying it from somewhere they shouldn't be, then we should have blocked the outgoing traffic. And looking at the MITRE attack for the Shiny group to see what is their typical attack vector for that. So those are the things we're going to talk about when we do our collab next week. So these last three, we're going to start with the 861 incident handling. We're going to talk about post activities. We're going to create a report. We're going to talk about lessons learned. That's what we were going through right there. And two here is the big ones. What could be done to prevent similar incidents from occurring in the future? That's what we're going to talk about. Having Splunk or CloudWatch or else cache. Can we look for what Shiny Group does? So if they're moving around in our infrastructure, they're doing certain things, we can identify them and block them. Right. And what we just talked about, what could we do to improve detection of similar incidents? And the big one is MFA. All right. And they even said it because Snowflake called them out. Where your MFA, right? All right. So where's your Beyond Trust? Where's your Okta? All right. So where's your Okta? Where's your YubiKey? All right. PBO working on the fly, man. Doing it on the fly, right? So those are the things we're going to hit next week. And Mr. Finesse is definitely going to be a guest in the house. He's going to be up here with me. We're going to have him on the slideshow getting in there. So that's what we're going to do. So I just want to show him what he's up, what he's doing next week. Nah, but we all good. So, but yeah, that's what we're going to dig in, right? Today was the top. I always call this the management piece. We talking. Next, we're going to roll our sleeves up and come up with some practical solutions of what we need to put in place from an architecture standpoint. From a GRC standpoint, what should we be looking like in the SIM? What should we look like for MITRE? What should from an AWS? I'm an AWS fanboy. I just told Jim I got what should have been configured in AWS to stop this from happening, right? From a postmortem / hot watch. So that's what we're gonna get into next week. Roll our sleeves up and get dirty. This is what my man Jim R talking about. Cool. You trying to get me in trouble? I'm trying to get this CISP, Jim. I've been studying for forever. So I was just studying before. Shout out to study GRC. I forgot the new one came out in April. So I was like, oh man, I got to get some new material. I don't think it changed much, but I need to switch over. We don't do much since we moved to Azure DevOps, but AWS architecture. Oh yeah, it's cool. I learned. And the cool thing, Jim, is they do a lot of their big presentations. They're online. So I was reading about ingress traffic, and they have a new DNS firewall because I guess a lot of times you can run queries outside the net going through the DNS firewall if it's not configured correctly. So I'll probably do a video on that at AWS ingress firewall blocking outside traffic. Because a lot of times when you don't do ransomware, your command and control is outside, right? Going to an IP that you should never let out. So all your IPs going out, if they're not going out for DNS, there should be a reason in a document ticket. We're going to PCI. We're going to the credit card people for Ticketmaster. We're going to this location. We're going to that. This is for our other vendor, right? So any IP going out that's not going out firewall, for your web app to the DNS or somebody querying, all those other ones that's coming deep down inside your architecture should be approved. Justin Williams, too many companies don't believe it, which is crazy. And the sad part about that, just easy. I'll drop the link if anybody want to come up. It's such an easy thing to fix. I set up with Cisco. It was easy. It's AWS. It was so easy to set up, and the first 10 were for free. So I agree with you. I do see that a lot, which I don't. That's almost negligent. Yep, neglecting it. Yeah, you negligent. So you're going to end up, let me bring up my other favorite slide real quick. I need somebody to do some math before we get out of here. I need somebody to validate that number I had up there, man. I need some validation people. Somebody help me out. I need somebody to validate that number. Jim R, give me a calculator, Jim R. 500 million customers times $100 is 50 billion. I need somebody to validate that before I go lay back down in my old age, I need somebody to validate that number. Somebody get the calculator out. I need to know. I did that. It looked right, but that number's so big. Then on that, the Ticketmaster said, "Oh yeah, that's no material impact." I'm like, dude, you got to spend $50 billion on credit monitoring. What do you mean that's no financial impact on us? I'm like, you eating $50 billion? Oh, that's correct. But I think they got cyber insurance, so they told us, they told us, the insurance company, we paid our premium. Like you wreck your car, you be like, I paid my premium. That's just a big number, man. That's nothing fixed. That's no consultant. You ain't paid GMR in the house. You ain't paid Dr. Finesse. You ain't played blackjack yet. You ain't played facts, no fluff. You ain't paid nobody. You still at, you ain't played before the billions, and you still at 50 billion. Come on, man. That's just a big number. So Ticketmaster must just be printing money. So I don't know. I'm still perplexed by that, man. I appreciate you. I appreciate the validation. I'm just that number. I'm just like, man, 50 billion ain't hurting you financially. Y'all must be selling a lot of tickets, like they said. Yeah, monopoly. That's a good point. I didn't think about that at that bulk, but still. So what you at? 10 billion? Okay, Jim, I give you 8. So what you at? 10 billion now? You at 4 billion. Okay, I'm cool with that, Jim. You still at 4 billion, man. That is a good point. I need to check on that, man. Now, I think you're right about that. I take that back. I think you're right. But if we do $10, okay, you at 5 billion, Jim. Okay, we down to 5 billion. Okay, I'm cool with that. Yeah, it's got to be insurance, blackjack. Yeah, it's got to be. For you to say no material impact, that's crazy. It's got to be insurance, man. No, but I agree with Jim. I didn't think about that. I'm sure if you getting 500 million, Jim, you can get a little discount. get a little discount. Instead of 100, I charge you 10, man. Let's just do it easy, 10. And that'd be what, 5 billion? We cut off a 0, so we had a 5 billion. You just just 5 billion. That's all we had to pay, 5 billion. We're gonna round it up to 10. Let's see. I dropped the link. If anybody want to come by, hang out for a little bit. But once again, me, my man Chris, Dr. Finesse, we're gonna collab next week. We're gonna hit on these parts. If y'all want to know any questions, just drop them in the chat. But those are the big things we're gonna hit. Like I said, roll our sleeves up, kind of do 861 computer system handling. How do you handle incident response attack? Once again, we're gonna do the post activity there. Kind of do I'll probably find a template report somewhere. Then 2 is who should attend. We'll talk about that later. But the big ones is what could be done to prevent a similar incident from occurring in the future, and how do you improve detection of the similar incidents, right? So once again, we're going to discuss those things we were just looking at the bottom here. Misconfiguration. Snowflake blamed actually Ticketmaster. Should have been private traffic, meaning the hackers to pull that information should have been coming from a certain subnet inside your AWS if it was set up correctly. Usually you have an admin subnet for your admin to log into, hopefully VDI. Then from that VDI and that private subnet, they can work on databases or become SAAS, and depending on who's logging in what. If you're a Red Hat administrator on our EC2s, you shouldn't be able to get the data to the database because you're not a DBA, but we have all those privileges coming from a certain subnet, meaning you can only work on certain boxes, right? So once again, get our least privilege coming down from that. And once again, encryption, once the database encrypted at rest in the database, outside traffic should have been blocked. Once again, MITRE ATT&CK, we're gonna figure if Chinese got their MITRE ATT&CK TTP, maybe we could have saw it in Splunk or L-Cache before they actually stole the database. Then like my man said, everybody should have MFA, Beyond Trust, Okta, or YubiKey. Hopefully, if you're a DBA, I'm going to make you use MFA, which could be Okta or Beyond Trust, and use a YubiKey. So I'm going to make you have 3 forms. You log in the password. When you do the MFA, then it forces you to put a YubiKey inside USB drive to pull your key out there. Because obviously, if you can get to the database, like my man said, that's where all the good stuff is, right? So we need to be checking those out. And we'll talk a little bit about there. It's going three MFA. It's probably 2.5 MFA because Beyond Trust usually go to your phone, something you have, and your key is something you have, right? So there's two something you have, right? So it's not really 3 MFAs. But if somebody stole your phone or stole your SIM card, they would actually have to steal your YubiKey too, right? So that's a whole different level, right, of hacking, right? Reputation impact, but considering monopoly won't hurt them as much, maybe I'm right. No, I agree with that. They print out a ton of money, and that's why they can afford that level of insurance, right? You could probably Google it real quick. I'm sure they probably a Fortune 500 company. Ticketmaster's been around, and if the government's talking about suing you because you're a monopoly, right? I'm sure you're making a ton of money. So no, I agree with that, Blackjack UT. Like you said, that when the government's coming for you, that means you're making way too much money, right? So that means you can afford cyber insurance. A lot of companies I talk, they like, well, shit, if I don't get hacked for 5 years, I'll have as much as what I need for cyber insurance, right? So that's always the catch-22. Let's see, continuous monitoring is another. Yep, that's what we're talking about. Using we're gonna look at it from Splunk. They usually have a lot of agents, and MITRE usually has things you can feed into Splunk to follow that SIM. You're 100% correct, and that's what we'll talk about next week. I might give you a couple action items, Dr. Finesse, so you can get ready for the collab, PBO and the GRC study hall collabing. So he's definitely gonna be in there. We're gonna have him up here doing some work. Once again, I hope everybody has a great week. Once again, I'm gonna hang out a little longer. I dropped the link if anybody want to come up. No pressure though. Let's see, but yeah, those are the things. Like I said, we're gonna dig in, get a little more technical. Usually we're GRC and talking about policies and procedures, some high level. Now we're gonna talk about, like my man Jim was saying, we're gonna talk a little bit. And I said I was gonna dig into that a little bit this year. Talking about architectures, right? AWS 3 bucket, going into Snowflake, right? That's who they say got hacked. Is Snowflake in AWS? Is Snowflake in Azure? What was this connection here? Trying to figure out what that was. It encrypted into is what best of breed should we be looking for from a security architecture standpoint, right? How do we look at these connections to make sure they're encrypted? How do we look at the meta tables and the MV tables? Were those encrypted? What did the hackers get to the data, right? Did they steal credentials? Sound like, did they have DBA credentials? Did they get somebody else's credentials, then elevate to a DBA, right? Where they going east and west to, once again, pull credentials from the database, from the AIM. Where did they get those credentials, right? What level was those credentials at? Some of that's starting to come out because Snowflake said, yep, they stole their credentials, but it wasn't ours, so it's not our fault, right? So shout out to them. So we're going to do a little research, get that in, and once again, dig down a little deeper next week from a security architect position, right? Security is a huge domain. I think people kind of take that lightly, right? There's SIM, SOC, compliance. I do a lot of NIST and IRS Pub 1075, right? Assessments, audits, poems, right? I always call that the management piece, really, right? That's management approved paperwork, right? But from the paperwork's hardening, CIS checks, STIG checks, schism checks. How do you harden a Snowflake database, right? Did Ticketmaster do the hardening to make sure their environment was as safe as it could be? Snowflake said they had misconfiguration. So basically they said you are liable because that's negligent. You didn't do the basic of configurations. Misconfiguration's been in OWASP top 10 for a decade. So Snowflake said, that's on you, Ticketmaster. And that's what AWS says. And I think a lot of people miss that. It's a shared responsibility. AWS says, here are the tools, but you have to configure them to the level of security you need. So when I work with the study how GRC, the things I try to make to them, and I always say is, when we talk about assessment of security, the first thing I always say is what level of classification is that data in? Because that's going to tell you what level of security you need to be. If you're a hospital, right, that's HIPAA. If I'm a nuclear sub, right, that's going to be NIST high, right? So that's going to be a different level of security is if it's just my name and my address, which you can get from the web, right? That's not even PII, right? That's just data, right? So the level of classification is going to tell you the level of security. Now, Ticketmaster, you have your credit cards and all that. So that's going to be moderate, but from Ticketmaster management perspective is even if we go with my man said $8.50 per person, if you got 500 million, that's still 5 billion, 4.5 billion, right? So when you start doing a business impact assessment, you tell management, hey, our database could cost us 500 million or 5 billion. Let's go with 5 billion. We still ain't paid anybody. That's credit monitoring, right? So what level of security should you put on something that's asset value is 5 billion, right? So that's where you start talking to CIOs and CEOs. And I've been in those meetings when you start throwing numbers up like that with calculations and possible impacts, people start paying attention. Oh, what's going to cost us 5 billion, right? What could mess up our reputation and cost us 5 billion, right? CEOs in the C-suite, and now the board of directors are starting to ask questions because 5 billion can mess up your whole financials for 3 or 4 years. But not if you Ticketmaster, man. You got money like that in your sock. Now, like my man said, I think they got insurance. Shout out to Blackjack right there. Insurance. $1. So, let's see, $1. $1 per Stella. No, fast. Let's see. By the way, I'm working part-time this month as a SME for IC Squared Unified Body of Knowledge. Basically validating job tasks, current, complete, accurate reference. I'm handling. Oh, that's cool. Now, you're right, even $1 a person. Like you said, those are big numbers. But you got to think, we ain't even fixed anything. And when you call Mandiant out, man, they base fee going to be $400 an hour. Mandiant don't be playing, man. Junior people right out of college, they charging $300 an hour for those dudes. So you get a practice manager, he charging $500 an hour just to step foot in the building. And don't let him have to get on a plane and get there ASAP. You just writing them a blank check, but they the big dog, man. And that's what everybody want to see, Mandiant or Microsoft. I was surprised. I've seen him on a couple big engagements. I never think of them at that level. But now those are the big dogs. Once again, I'm going to drop the link if anybody want to come up. Once again, we collabing next week with Dr. Finesse and Chris and some other people from the GRC study hall. Nice to volunteer writing exam questions and doing job tasks, but bad on my beer time facts. Like I said, I've been trying to get my studying back up. I was studying, but then I forgot the new version was coming out, and it just hurt my feelings. The new version of CISP just came out, so I don't think they got the book out for it. When are we going live, Dr. Finesse? Is that Wednesday? Did we say Wednesday, 8:30? I probably go live, but the one I got scheduled, I think it's Wednesday at 8:30. See, like Dr. Finesse, I don't forgot the day. I'm so tired. I think it's Wednesday at 30. This is when we're gonna go over that right there, Jim. 8:30 Eastern time. Dr. Finesse, chime in on that. If you're still there, I'll be forgetting. I'll be in so many Discords and chatting and trying to do my whole life. I'll be mixing days. But Dr. Finesse, well, I'll get that to you, Jim. I'm thinking Wednesday, 8:30 we talked about. Oh, let's see who came up. What is up, Caesar?
Pretty good. Good evening, fellas.
Are we going Wednesday, 8:30? Is that what we said?
I mean, we could. I mean,
That's
right
what Chris
after
said.
right after study hall.
Yeah, he said we're gonna go to hour and go live talking about this. That's what Chris said.
Yeah, we could.
I'll get that out to you, Jim. I'll get that out to you. I need to check with my other cohort on that. He kind of runs this GRC study hall. I just kind of do what he said.
We can definitely do that. Yeah, why not? Basically 7:30, 8:30, and then we jump in here, and when We
Yep.
start dissecting absolutely everything.
Yep. And we're gonna talk over the slides a little bit so everybody
Yeah.
be on
It
that.
just
So
companies nowadays is like what I somebody here said MFA, man, just people don't want to stick it to the basics. It's just if companies just stay basic, a lot of these stuff won't happen. But they want to overcomplicate stuff. They don't want to use MFA as something as simple as that. Just because everybody's going to try to cheap out, I guess. People get insurance because they need to, not because they want to.
I agree with that. I'll check that out, Jim. I actually got LinkedIn, and Mike Chappell teaches a lot of stuff on LinkedIn. So Jim, I thought I'll check to see if he's got that new version on the LinkedIn. I appreciate that, Jim. I'll look up that. Check out my homie. She there. She gonna be there tomorrow. I mean, not tomorrow. Wednesday when we go live. She's part of the GRC study hall. She doing
What's
big
up,
things,
Reina?
trying to pivot in there. So she gonna be in there. Is it on LinkedIn, Jim? Is it on LinkedIn that you think his book? A lot of times he has a class on LinkedIn. I'll check out his book too. I like to listen to videos more than read anymore, Jim. But I'll peek at that book. I'll probably order it right after this. But yeah, like I said, GRC study how it's growing. She's definitely a member making things happen. So once again, we're gonna do a collab between me and them. Come on here and we're gonna break down the Snowflake and the Ticketmaster. Ticketmaster, I think, was a little negligent. So we're gonna see if they're negligible. I gotta figure out, I gotta be careful. I won't get no cease and desist about Ticketmaster.
It's and this is my opinion, and I don't know if I'm overdoing it, but I honestly feel that if these type of companies start getting hefty fines for stuff like this, for not having something as simple as MFA, they get a hefty fine. I promise people will start thinking about security different. It's like I know Chris spoke. I think you were in the conversation too, because my background's in sales and then security. Companies don't take security as serious. Obviously, sales, because sales is what brings the money,
Mhm.
but companies need to take this security stuff seriously, honestly, because we're just getting hacked left and right for not doing the basic things. In the sales industry, from my guys, when I was managing people, I always told them keep everything basic, KISS,
Yeah,
keep it simple, special. So when these big companies like that start getting hit with big fines, they'll think about it.
no, I agree with
They'll
that.
definitely think about it.
Because yeah, if you look on the screen, that's what Snowflake said. He said they were attacking people with at the bottom. This was possible because now that was there. They were saying a lot of the clients they believe hack only had single authentication and not two. So Snowflake is actually blaming Ticketmaster.
It's just they want to cheap out. I mean,
You know?
that's exactly what it is. They want to save, and I mean, I can't blame them. But we're talking about people's lives, privacy.
No, that's true.
It's
That's
just it's crazy. It's crazy. And something as phishing emails and stuff like that. People are getting caught with that stuff left and right. Engineering, social engineering it's crazy. And it is most of the time, unfortunately, is our parents, our grandparents,
yeah.
older people, and they're the ones that's suffering. So when because I know people that have been by social engineering, and it sucks when you hear it. Now that I'm getting in the industry, I'm not no expert, but I'm getting into the industry. It sucks when you hear something like that. It's like, are you kidding me? This stuff actually works.
No, that's true. But cool thing that's plus and minus. That means they need people like you in there. People to help enforce that. Like you said, to help with the basics. Real quick, if you look at this paragraph at the bottom, it says Snowflake noted the attacks succeeded due to poor customer
Customer configuration.
and
This appears to be targeted campaign directed as a user single
see, so that lets you know that
single factor as
yeah.
part of that campaign. Yeah.
So they letting them say, hey, so think about it. So Snowflake's like, hey, it wasn't us. Shout out, so wasn't us. So, but
Yeah.
yeah,
You read the article that I wrote in LinkedIn, right, about this?
I didn't. I saw it. I
Yeah.
didn't read it. That's
Yeah.
cool. I'll check it out.
It's
I'll share it. So get your count up, man. Get your count up. I'll share it.
I'm in the 100-day. I'm in the 100-day challenge. I think I'm like in day 50. I think it
That's
is.
cool. I think I saw it. Let's look at this. who's held accountable most of the times? The company's held accountable, but they got cyber insurance. And like my man Caesar said, is if the fine is small, Ticketmaster prints money. So unless you're gonna hit them with, because they said $500 million wasn't well, a shout out to my man Jim. Let's say it was $5 million. We charged $10 for credit margin. It wasn't a material impact. It's not gonna hurt their third quarter numbers.
It is not. Unfortunately, like just so we can keep very easy numbers. Let's say they let's say they make $1 million and you give them a fine of 500,000. Like, hey, go right ahead and bill me again because it's gonna happen next week. Like, I don't care.
No, that's true.
But if you give them a fine for 2 million and they make $1 million, now they need to think. Now I'm negative 1 million.
No, facts.
Give them a bigger fee or a fine and see how they're gonna be respecting people's privacy a little more. They're gonna invest more on us, invest more in the companies. I mean,
no, that's true.
You and I, we had that conversation. I guess I'm a little more passionate right now because I'm not in there.
Nah, yeah,
but reality will hit, I guess.
Yeah, just long story. Who's accountable? It's the company, GR, for sure. But long story short, the fines aren't big enough. And two is we're actually becoming numb to that. People get, I mean, I've been hacked so many times. DOD got hacked. So, I mean, so my information's been out there. So I think we're just becoming numb to it. So unless, like Caesar said, Dr. Finesse, unless the fines get bigger, it's just part of doing business. Now, too, I got insurance. So am I scared? I make a lot of money and I got insurance. So I think we, like Dr. Finesse said, we need to make those fines higher to make it hurt, right? What's your thoughts on that? I'll let you chime in on that. You want to say anything on that?
He's passionate about the snowflake, huh?
I don't know, Jim. I'm kind of on Snowflake's side. They saying it was shared responsibility and the customer didn't do what they were supposed to do. That's what AWS says, Jim. We give you these things, but you got to configure it to the classification of the data you're working with, Jim. So I see what you're saying, Jim. So.
It's crazy. But the funny thing is that like, even look at the title, Ticketmaster. But Ticketmaster got hacked. In fault, not in fault, however you want to put it, but everything happened through Snowflake. So right. everybody is basically, the big name here is Ticketmaster. Everybody knows that name, and they're the ones that are gonna get blamed for everything. They're gonna be in the first page.
But like Jim R said, I didn't read it, but Jim, a congressperson says something about this to AWS. You know, best to be configuration, so why don't you make that the default settings? Because AWS has some settings. It was like, dude, why did you make that the default setting when you know they're getting better about that? But Congress is calling them out because AWS was like, hey, we gave them the tools. They got to configure it. Then Congress says you have some responsibility of helping them get it configured right because you're selling these services to these companies. So
both of them should be accountable. Both companies, or 3 companies, or just a whole entire chain of people. And we're talking about snowflakes and Ticketmaster. Yep. Both of them should be accountable at that point, because Snowflakes is just cleaning his hands. Hey, yes. I told you to do this, you didn't do it. I mean,
facts, man, facts. So that's too, and I think that's what we're struggling with shared responsibility. Yeah. Where really is that dotted line? And AWS been getting beat up a lot, and they were in front of Congress, so I think they're setting their defaults a lot better now. So, but some of their defaults was crazily set up. But now, shout out to that. Yeah, I did saw that in January where Microsoft. But last year, Microsoft, I think it was China, was killing Microsoft. I had to see a couple big government installations got hacked in Azure. So, but once again, that's kind of the new honeypot. All the big companies are there, so that's where the bad guys going to attack. Azure, AWS, and Google, they got all the big companies. So those are the ones that's going to, get attacked. Yeah, I do see that a lot, Jim. A lot of times when I was at the state, we were buying products, and at first we didn't know what databases or what their tech stack was. So now part of our review is we need to know the tech stack, even if it's a SaaS vendor. We want to know what your tech stack is because if it's certain technology, the Snowflake, you could be using it and we not knowing it, right? So I think it's part of your supply chain and your internal risk. You need to figure out what those tech stack is on those particular ones. So you're correct about that, Jim. So that's one thing we were trying to do. And a lot of times with rapid 7 scans, you can see internally what some of those products are using. In SAAS, I think we need to start asking. You need to get that in an internal database. So if you get hacked, you can say, okay, these are all our SAAS or our internal apps of our own printers using Oracle, SQL Server. These are the versions. So if those get hacked, at least we got in the database to kind of figure out what happens, or we just reaching out to vendors. Are you using it? Right. So I think from a risk assessment, third party assessment, we need to upgrade that. But I say you can buy excellent support data security. Oh, facts. That's true. And once again, those companies do work with federal government. So they, like you said, it's excellent support. And two is you can get support from those guys and get best of breed. And if you run an IRS or STIG or FISMA, they'll help you configure it to that level even. So that's 100%. Let's see here. Yeah. Let's say I hang out a little longer, see what anybody's doing. Like I said, I usually relax. I usually go out to dinner on Fridays. I've just been so tired. So I'm just kind of relaxing, drinking me some little orange juice. And like I said, going to study and working on figuring out what my next live is. I know I'm going with these guys Wednesday, and that's what we're going to talk on. Hopefully get upcoming cybersecurity superstar, get her up in the mix, get her up on the panel. Once again, that's the GRC study hall. So I usually in there Wednesday. So we're gonna cut out there and come here. And once I say we're gonna probably meet and talk about those slides at the end and get those ready for the next live. You got any last remarks, Caesar? I'm about to shut it down, man.
No, sir. No, sir. We'll definitely we'll get it down. I guess Wednesday, if that's the day that we decide for. Just
yeah, that's what we'll reach out to Chris. I'm sure we talked. That's what Chris said. And
I guess you'll make an announcement though. If we choose dates, if anything, if we
we're gonna do it.
Just make an announcement.
Yeah, I'm gonna ping Chris and get him because I think I'm gonna make him do the thumbnail.
Yeah, and just everybody come with your questions. Really, come with your questions. Come with your insights. That's the only way everybody's gonna learn how to look at stuff in a different perspective.
Yeah, I'm gonna do some, get us some base stuff to talk about. Let's see what my man Jim R said. Honestly, until I created our enterprise security controls, platform controls, configuration, the RNX was driving by and best practices don't. No, that's true. And most people don't do those enterprise security. The large companies I've worked for in the past, they had those, so you had to use a special set and a special hardening that was based on those enterprise configurations. Hell, I'm just having to see if I can see departmental, not enterprise. But now that's an excellent job. You're right on those. I try to use, once again, AWS has a set they kind of recommend to get started. Not enough love for password preparation could definitely help with accounts that have me locked. No, that's a good point. That's a good point. I take that for granted.
Oh yeah, I see. Let me see. Is that one about the password expiration policy?
Yep, that's cool. Yeah, I'm a NIST guy, so that's out the bucket. So we getting arguments because I'm a 90-day, and the new thing is that people think you're changing your password too much when you go 90 days. But
what you think? Do you recommend keeping it 90 days, keeping it shorter, giving it longer?
I've just done 90 days. But the research on that is when you change them that frequently, especially old people, they start writing them down and putting them in their phone because it is a lot. I've just done it my whole life, so I'm just kind of used to it. So I think maybe, but two is with the MFA, you can actually reduce a lot of that. Well, make them longer because the MFA is added security. So now instead of 90 days, you might take it out to 6 months. Now they said you can go back to 8 passwords when you do MFA, eight length. On a lot of those. If you look at the NIST, I think it's 63-3-3 for the password and stuff. So, so I could see that because it is a lot. Like I said, I just done it my whole life. Also, facts on the contracts.
It's just, I guess, people being trained instead of using phrases is more
Yeah.
secure than actually using, um, I guess, stuff that I guess pertain to you, if that's the right way to say it.
No, that's true. That's true. That's true. Once again, the data classification too depends on your classification. If you just a help desk and you can't really get to any of the PII, you know, your credentials are not a privileged account. All right. Now, if you a DBA or SA, right, where you can delete the whole disk or drop a whole database, right?
Correct.
That's on a different level.
But as well, when you go online, like the credentials, your passwords, they stay online with you. So, and that's something that companies should stop doing. Like every single time you go to a site, whatever it is, you need to put your password in there.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. But yeah, I think Jim, we kind of from the same. He said 90 days here. I have to fight everyone and everything else because security interferes with customer experience facts. So I'll
Yeah.
have to go without it. I'll check you out, Jim. Thanks for joining me. I'm about to get you up here pretty soon, Jim.
Yeah, definitely.
So he drops in a lot.
Hey, Jim, drop your LinkedIn so I can connect with you on LinkedIn.
So I don't know if you got him quick enough. He was 99.
Oh, he night out. Okay.
Yeah, so you might got.
I assume I'll catch him next time.
Yeah.
He'll be here. He'll be in here Wednesday.
Yeah, I need to go live more myself. That's what I keep saying I'm gonna do. But once again, I thought this was an excellent live. We touched on once again. We're gonna dig down a little deeper and talk about what they said, how to prevent it, how to lock it down. Number one is got to get our MFA in there because
Keep it basic.
I think Snowflake was snitching on them. Yeah, they were only hitting people with single authentication. So I appreciate it.
Basic.
I'll make sure my man reach out to you too on that. Help you out with that. But that's it. I'll let you if you got any last words.
No, sir. I mean, it was fun coming up here. We'll see you guys Wednesday.
Yeah, we'll probably see you before that because I'm gonna get some slides and distribute to y'all. So we can
definitely
look over, since we doing a joint, so you can see.
Yeah, doing a little tabletop.
Yep. And you've seen the last 4, so I'm just gonna add on to that.
Definitely, 100%.
So
it's gonna be interesting and fun.
Yeah, we'll make it. Like I said, I've done a couple of those, so you've seen them. I got a lot of stuff already framed up.
But you do have the years of experience.
Facts,
you have over everybody. Especially myself. I'm getting into the industry.
Yeah. But too, a lot of times too, and I give young people a lot of my stuff's old, so I'm trying to morph into some because I'm 90 days, but the research saying making people change 90-day password, they start writing it down. So I'll be like, I'm like GMR, you gotta do it. So some of my techniques are old, man.
What they call Carl?
Yeah. That's me.
Carl.
Yeah, so I've seen the old ladies do that. She told me she was gonna do it. She was wagging her fingers at me. That's too many times. I can't remember that. I was like, we're working with you. So we just came internally where if somebody get her password, they would have to break into the office and go on her laptop right. So we were like, well, that's better. So we gotta make it a little easier for her though. But what does that look like in the future though? So I appreciate everybody for joining me. Everybody have a great weekend. Come check us out Wednesday. We got, like I said, it's going to be the continuation of the Ticketmaster. I think I'm going to have Chris Whitlock do the thumbnail. I'm going to Ticketmaster database, locking it down to be safe or something. Have somebody in a jail uniform. I don't know. My thumbnails suck. That's all I got. Once again, Professor Black Ops, please subscribe. You see it. Let's get it. You're going to see us next week. I'll check you out, Caesar. Everybody have a great day.
You guys have a good one.